Hi there. With the holiday season approaching, I thought that I would make a video about grief and the holidays. A couple years ago, when my mother passed away, I started to write an article about grief and surviving your first holidays, but I hadn't experienced my first holiday yet. So I held off, and now 2 years later, I'm ready to share my experiences. But first, I want to take you back to 10 years ago. 10 years ago was a major ice storm in Toronto, and we had lost power in many places of Toronto where people had to go to heating centers. That was pretty much a major catalyst of a lot of loss in my life. Shortly after that, my grandmother passed away. My dog passed away, uncle, some aunts, other pets, my sugar gliders, friends. By the end of an 18-month period, I had lost about 12 loved ones. At the time, I was feeling like I was going crazy. How could I lose so many people who I loved in such a short time? I thought that this can't be real. This can't be my life experience, but it was. That was also the time that I had moved to Japan and dealt with a lot of other very intense situations over there, getting settled in. So I didn't have an opportunity to really grieve these losses. So many deaths were happening all at once, and I just locked up my heart more and more and more because I had to survive. I was in an environment where if I didn't lock up all that pain, then I wouldn't be able to work I also didn't have a place to live for a while due to some other circumstances, which I won't get into. But yeah, it was a really tough time. Grief peaked out though. The pain and loss and intensity came up, but it wasn't in a healthy way. It was always very suppressed, very shameful. I would be crying morning, night, but having to go to work and being as cheerful as I can, I started teaching English and had great students, and those helped me get through those times. But the time that I actually was able to grieve was when I lost my mother, and I was able to be with family and friends during that time. Whereas while I was in Japan, it was a lot of strangers, a lot of wonderful connections and warmth, but I wasn't with my core people. When my mother passed, I was with my core people. And I was able to grieve alongside others. It has been a lot of ups and downs, but what happened in my first Christmas was I had actually started studying to become a death doula. So I am a certified death doula now, trained, but haven't gone out into the field yet. And so at that time, I was writing a blog of how to survive your first Christmas. I didn't put it out there because I thought, well, I didn't experience mine yet. So I had gone through a whole bunch of websites and articles and blogs and made lists of what to do, how to prepare, make a space for the person and still carry on, or if you don't want to carry on, it's okay. A whole bunch of different advices. So what I did was I tried to embrace Christmas as much as I could, because that was something that living in Japan, I didn't get a chance to celebrate with my family very much. So I was eager to celebrate with my family again. And my family had a tradition of going to Niagara Falls on New Year's Eve. So the whole month building up, I was very aware very much in thinking brain of what grief is. I'm thinking about grief. I'm aware that, oh, I'm going to feel this way. And, you know, I'm practically crying it out and logically doing all these things. Then we went to an outlet mall, and I walked through with my partner, met my family for a little bit. And then we went to a store where the person said, no, you can't come in, we're closing. But my partner had to return something. They let him in and made me wait in the cold by myself. My family had already moved on. And that moment, sitting in the Christmas, feeling the cold of the space and feeling the coldness of the salesperson, I broke down. That was the thing that broke me, that made me feel everything. And it was very inconvenient because I was by myself, and it didn't make any sense, because how is somebody's coldness a trigger to losing my mother? Like, that doesn't, it was not able to process logically for me. So all of my past grief experiences came up, of the shame and the coldness and the harshness and needing to hide it and cover it up. My partner came out, and I was standing in the middle of the mall. He just looked at me, and I just started wailing, bawling, like everything coming out. And he just held me and said, it's okay. And I felt embarrassed and ashamed. And he just held me and loved me and didn't try to move me away, didn't try to hide my feelings. He just stood there in the middle of a crowded place and just let it feel. That was the most compassion that I had felt from grief. I feel like that was an experience that taught me so much about grief that reading articles and books could not have taught me. After that moment, I just released all that pain, and then I realized that my inner child came out, and that inner child was like laughing hysterically, like being all weird. I saw my family, I told them the story, and I watched myself act like a fool in front of my family. They just listened. And we all kind of shed some tears together, and just was. So 2 years later, last year was really, really hard. I was in Japan. I think I was alone on Christmas, but not alone, because actually some family members invited me to their Christmas, so that was wonderful. They had recently had a loss too of a parent, so that was very soothing. We all were able to grieve together, cry together. This year, getting ready for a Christmas party, I was a little bit late, and me being late is an emotional trigger for me because I hate being late, and I'm always late. So I was late, and I'm driving, and I'm just like, my mom is not going to be at this Christmas. And I had to pull over just before reaching the DVP to cry because it was hurting my eyes so much. I was crying so much, and I lost it. And the thing is, especially this year, what I'm finding is I am holding a lot of anger. I still haven't figured out what the anger is. Maybe it's just the anger of losing my person. And The whole 5 stages of grief, by the way, is bullshit. Any death doula or palliative care nurse person could tell you that that's really not a thing. Grief is multi-layered, works in mysterious ways. It's a million things over. So that is something that, I'm dealing with anger right now. And I'm angry at my partner a lot, unintentionally. He has been supportive and puts a lot of effort in, and even my family, I find I'm snapping on them. I don't know if they've noticed, but I notice it. But it's coming out in these ways, and I have to accept that this is grief. I have to accept that this is part of the emotional journey, because the hardest thing is when you go through therapies and certifications and trainings and all of these things, and you're able to support others and help others, you logically know so much, but the absolute hardest thing to do is to feel it yourself, to really feel the pain of loss, to have that hurt be inside. Because how do you endure it? How do you survive it? How do you survive the most painful thing possible? And right now, there's layers of pain in this world. And we're grieving so much, not only with our loved ones, but what's going on in the world. We are in a state of collective grief right now. And how are we going to survive it? Sometimes it feels like we don't. I don't feel like I survived my mother's death, to be honest. But I did. And I'm here. And I am holding optimism, actually, like ridiculous optimism in everything coming together and this world coming out a better situation, because now we're understanding grief. Now we're understanding pain. Now we're understanding loss. And now we're understanding how important it is to be kind and compassionate to each other. It might not be every day, but we can experience this love from other people in multiple ways. So something that has helped me is just to let my heart break open. Let it hurt. Let it be painful, and let it happen in a safe space. If there's somebody that you know that you can cry to, then please contact that person and just release and say, I don't need you to say anything. I just need to release. You can release this pain and be with someone who's going to keep you safe. It's very real that a lot of us don't have that person. A lot of people are surrounded by others who don't have the compassion training. We're not taught to be compassionate. And I remember watching these YouTubes of self-compassion. You know, these TED Talks of self-compassion and these trainings of self-compassion. It wasn't a training. Learning about compassion, self-compassion, is a journey to learn. You don't just know it. Somebody has to show it to you. And sometimes over and over again until you get it, until you understand that it's safe. It's safe to be with yourself. It's safe to be with others. It's safe to be that person for another. But that it takes time. something else that I would like to implement in my journey is just more love.